Hello, you're watching Ellie from Elementary Paper Crafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK, and today I'm bringing you our look at Tidings and Trimmings. This is a photopolymer stamp set which is available from our annual catalogue, which is running from May this year through to April of next year. The Tidings of Christmas suite appears on page 88 and 89 of the catalogue, and the whole suite includes the stamp set, the dies, and some gorgeous 6x6 papers, and there are 6 designs, and you get 8 sheets of each, so that's 48 papers you receive. They are reversible, so more prints on the reverse side, and the majority of them are sized quite small, the actual print, apart from that one which is quite a general size. They've done this deliberately so that if you wish to cut out the stockings from the dies, this is a really nice size. For instance, if you were to use that size die on this, it wouldn't be in relation to the size of the stocking. So that's the collection. It also includes this beautiful ribbon. This is Chevron weave ribbon. It's 3/8 of an inch wide, which is 1 centimetre, and I'm going to bring it up so you can see it close by. It's really beautifully detailed, and this colour is Evening Evergreen, which is one of the new in colours. So that's what I'm going to use today, and I was inspired by this little card here, so I've actually recreated that one. I think I've done it slightly differently, but yeah, we'll have a look. But I've also done a couple of other different ones to show you that it's absolutely fine to case these designs. That's what they're here for. They're here to sort of give you a little bit of inspiration of how to use the suite to get you going. But you'll find that once you start making one of these cards, ideas come to mind, and then you'll be creating your own designs within no time at all. So I've started off with a piece of basic white cardstock. Now this was from the A4 sheet, which is how it comes, and I've just cut an A4 sheet in half. I've scored this in half, and that would be on the 4 1/8 line to make what we call a 10-fold card. Okay, now I'm going to start off today. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to do some stamping just around the edges of the card, just to give a little bit of extra interest to the finished card. So I'm going to be using this little trio of leaves stamp, which I'm going to mount onto a block, and I'm going to put some paper underneath because I'm probably going to go over the edges of it. Well, in fact, I know I'm going to go over the edges of it. And I'm going to use some Versamark ink for this, which is the invisible sticky ink. Now this is used for stamping when you want to use another effect. Now people always go for the embossing powders, which is a really lovely effect, but today I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is to use the gilding. I always call them Gilding Flakes, and it's not the right description. Gilded leaf, that's what we call it, which I've done before, but I've not used it in this way. So I'm just going on randomly with the leaf stamp, and I've just gone along the top here and along the bottom there. Now I'm just going to switch my heat gun on, which I hope it won't be too noisy. And then I'm going to use my heat and stick powder to just apply to the area where I stamped. And then I'm just going to shake the excess off. So then we just take the heat tool and just heat up the areas that I've used the powder and ink on. Now that's all shiny, you might not be able to see it, but I can see in my light. And when that's gone shiny, you can go to your Gilding Flakes. Now I'm just going to pop my mask on because I know from experience that as soon as I start breathing over these leaves, they'll start flying everywhere. So I'm just going to take the main pot out, pop this into my container. Now, if you've watched me before, you might notice that I'm using a different container for my gilded leaf. I was using a flatter box, but that was getting everywhere, so I decided to try a deeper container in the hope that they wouldn't end up all over the place. So I've just stuck the gold leaf to one end, and then I'm just going to bring this side in and start patting it down on that side. So once I've pressed it down, I then start to gently brush away the excess gold leafing. Now this gives a totally different effect to embossing powders. Embossing powders give a very even, shiny look to your work. The gilded leaf gives a more of an antique-y kind of look, which I quite enjoy, especially on a Christmas card. Christmas is such a, you know, an old tradition. I think it lends itself beautifully to this sort of antique-y effect. I might put a little, try and get a little bit more on there. I've not pressed down very hard in that corner. Okay, so it's kind of like an imperfect effect, which in some cases is really, really good. And I'm going to pop that powder in this container with everything because I often can't find it in my drawer. Okay, so I've just got a little bit of detail top and bottom, which doesn't look anything at the moment, but that will be fine for what I want today. I've actually done a lot of this preparation ahead of time because I didn't want to use up too much time on the video. So I've already cut a piece of that designer series paper I showed you, so that it's, I think I cut this to 3 inches. Yeah, so it's 3 inches, and I cut it, I haven't actually cut it because this is 6x6 paper, so I've not cut it yet. So my idea is to mount it onto the card and then cut it down. It's very often better to do things this way because if you cut it to the size you think is the same as the card, it could be, oh, just a millimetre out. and you know, if it's a millimetre too short, it looks horrible on the card. You know, it's better to be 1/8 of an inch short, because at least then you can even it up both sides and make it look as if it's supposed to be like that. But when it's just a fraction short, it doesn't look good. So I'm going to just hold that up in front of me so that I can get an even border top and bottom. I'm just going to press that down. Incidentally, the glue I used was our Tombow multi-adhesive, and that's in a green and white container in our catalogue, but I put it into this, if you've watched me before you'll know, I find it easier to dispense in this fine tip applicator. So once I pop that card on, I can turn my card over and trim off the excess like so, and then I know that that's as fitting perfectly and you get a much nicer look. Now I'm going to do the same thing with a piece of basic white cardstock, which I've cut to 2 inches, and again I just used an offcut which I'm going to place along here. Before I actually pop that one down, I've taken a piece of that ribbon and I've cut it to the same size as the card, and then I just use a lighter just to burn the edges, just to melt the edges to stop this from fraying. Then I'm going to take some of our tear and tape, that's our double-sided tape, and I'm going to pop some on the back of this piece of Whisper White, or sorry, Basic White. It's changed the name recently and I haven't quite got used to it yet. So if I just take the backing off of that tear and tape, I'm going to pop my ribbon, actually I want to put it this way up because I want to see, I want to leave about a 1/4 of an inch of that ribbon showing, like so. And again, I've cut this too long so that I can place it on the card and then trim it off. The wet glue works well on paper and card, but sometimes it's not so good with ribbon, and so that's why I use the tear and tape before. Now I'm going to position this so that I get roughly the same border top and bottom, and then I'm going to again turn my card over and trim these bits here. So that's given us lots of interest before we've even started to add our other bits and pieces. So when I get a new stamp set, I always take all the stamps out, all the dies out, and I have a really good play with them. So I stamp, I cut things out, and obviously I will use those things that I cut out, but sometimes those things are ready and I haven't used them yet. And I keep them in a cellophane bag. These bags are available to pop your finished cards in, but they're really useful for keeping bits and pieces in, and then you can keep that inside the stamp set. And I do the same things with the dies. I mount them onto some card, it's very stiff card here, and then I put some magnetic sheet onto it, and then I put my dies on and pop them in a cellophane bag. And that cellophane bag I actually stick to the inside of the case. Then it's all safe and sound in there. So whenever I want to use this whole collection, it's all in there. Okay, so that's just a little tip. So I've cut out all the bits that I want to use today. And I've used some of the designer series paper that I showed you to cut that stocking, and I also used it to cut out the leaves here and the little tiny star. So then I've stamped the stocking and that beautiful ornate star design in the real red, so that matches this. And then I've done the same with the bow, stamped it and then cut it out. And then I've used the blends to colour this one in. So all that's left to do now is to arrange our cutout pieces onto the card. Now you can do this any way you like. I actually followed the catalogue photograph perfectly for the one I did here, but I wanted to do something a little bit different with this one. So what I've chosen to do is take the star, and I'm going to put it sort of, I don't know, roughly there. I'm going to take the leaves and pop them just, I don't know, perhaps there, kind of thing. Again, this is all just as you would like to see it, you know, just play around. Once you've cut things out, you can then decide what you're going to do with them. And I think possibly this would look nice, and then perhaps stamp a greeting here, maybe. Yep. Yeah, I think that's going to look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my star on first so that I've got a starting point, and then I'm going to do my stamping of my greeting, and then I'll place the things. I often find if I go ahead and place my die cuts, etc., before I stamp my greeting, I sometimes get a bit carried away and there's no room for the greeting. So that's just a little tip for you. The stamp pad I'm using is the Real Red. This is also always my go-to red for Christmas cards. Yeah, I'm a bit of a traditionist, I think. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp this onto a piece of scrap once or twice. When you buy a new stamp set, the stamps have been conditioned and they need just to be stamped off a few times before you actually use them for the, you know, for the first time. It's a little, I don't know what it is, it's kind of like a film on it, but that's just a protective film. It's not going to impair the finished stamp. It just needs to be used a couple of times before you take it off. Now that's happened because I've popped this piece of paper, I didn't put it evenly under there, and so I've caused myself to misprint that. But I'm going to, I'll just quickly show you. I know I'm going to use a bit of time up here, but I just wanted to show you what to do if you do something like that. So I keep my cardstock in a folder like this. I think I've showed you before. And I always keep all my scraps. And it comes in very useful for times like this. So if this happens to you and you think, oh, I've done all that work, I've spoilt my card, just take a piece of scrap, re-stamp it. My G didn't come out very well that time. Take your trimmer, give that a second or two to dry. Actually still, you can see when it's, if it's still wet because it's shiny. Right, that looks to be okay now. So I'm just going to pop that in the trimmer. Like so. tweezers is a really good tool. You'll see me use mine quite often. The tiny things, it's really easy with a pair of tweezers to pick things up. So all I can do now is just pop that over the top of the stamping I wasn't happy with. If you want, you can actually take a couple of dimensionals. In fact, that's what I'll do. Take a couple of dimensionals, pop that on the back, and then it looks as if you actually meant to do it, and you can actually make a feature of it. Very often a mistake can actually turn into something that looks as if you intended to do it. So it wasn't what we planned, but it doesn't matter. We're still going to end up with a nice card. Okay, so to go back to placing our bits and pieces, let's just pop my stockings down where I think they're going to fit nicely, and I'll pop these leaves in. Just, it's always a good idea to pop the bigger things in first and then slot the smaller things in. So I kind of like that effect. Let's just pop that on and make sure we like that. Yep, I think that's going to be good. So I'm just going to move those two away and put some glue on these. So these are going underneath, so I'm putting those first. So does anybody else start their Christmas cards really early? I've always sort of started mine by June at the latest. But I love making Christmas cards, so I often start much earlier than that. You know, I'm not, you know, I know you're all going to burst out laughing at this and think I'm stupid, but I've actually started them in January. Yeah, I have. But that's because I've usually sort of got a couple of stamp sets just before Christmas, and just love them so much that I like to carry on playing with them. And, you know, obviously Christmas happens every year, so I'm always going to need Christmas cards. I don't buy any at all. I do make every one that I send. So that's all those bits attached, and then just to finish it off, because I think it needs something in the middle there, I'm going to add that tiny little star, which again is from a die cut. So that's today's finished card. So we started off by casing the catalogue and making this one. And then I actually made a similar one, but slightly different. So I just changed up the colours there and the greeting and put stars on. And then today's card, which again is similar, but again I changed up the greeting. I've used the big star there. I've added the gilded leaf. So you can see how you can build up different designs, similar or completely different, just by starting off with one idea from our catalogue. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. This is my online shop. This is the July host code. If you'd like to order anything, please use that host code and I'll send you an extra little free gift. If you order from the 3rd of January to the end of September, there are some free gifts available. So by spending £45, you can receive one of our free gifts. If you'd like a catalogue, please let me know and I'll get one sent out to you, or I can advise you how to download it from our site. I will put a link to my online shop in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're watching on Facebook, you'll see a link at the top where it says Shop Now. I hope to see you again soon, and please click the like button, the follow button, share, all those buttons, and give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.